everyone. Welcome to the 8th in the Evening Conversation series from the Connecticut Democracy Center at Connecticut's Old State House. My name is Allie Keif, and I'm a museum educator at the Connecticut Democracy Center, and will be hosting tonight's program. We are the place where history and civics meet, and our goal is to share stories and ideas that help people understand our state and find ways to make it better. This evening, I'm so happy to be joined by Lelania Dubay of the Hartford Flavor Company, pastel artist Jane Penfield, and ceramic artist Virginia Seeley, three Connecticut creators who produce wonderful artwork and creative cocktails. All of the creations make wonderful gifts for the holiday season. Connecticut is home to a number of wonderful local businesses. Tonight, we will learn more about their origin stories, creative processes, and current and upcoming projects. Lelania Dubay is the creatrix of Wild Moon and the Hartford Flavor Company. Hartford Flavor Company is founded on the idea that the creative cocktail is an essential aspect of both the social and dining experiences. Lelania went to Southern Connecticut State University for art with a painting major and art history minor. Design is her strength, and to Lelania, any new challenge is just a different medium. Jane Penfield is an award-winning artist. Her work is an impression of light in life as she has experienced it through walking, travel, and direct observation. Jane holds a Bachelor of Arts from Mount Holyoke College and a master's degree from the Hart School of the University of Hartford. She was first inspired by the beautiful New England landscape of the Pioneer Valley, a place that nourished her intellectually and creatively, helped form her values, and started her on her artistic path. She currently serves as president of the Connecticut Pastel Society. Connecticut Pastel Society. Now able to focus primarily on pastel and oil painting, she finds great joy in the creative process and in teaching. Finally, Virginia Seeley is a ceramic artist based in Hartford. She completed her first clay model of her first home in 1979 and has done many commissioned houses since. Presently, she is working on clay models of historically significant buildings in downtown Hartford. Virginia has been working as a clay hand builder since 1969 when she earned her BA in studio art from Valparaiso University in Indiana. In 1974, she earned an MA from Hartford Art School. She has been a member of Wesleyan Potters in Middletown, Connecticut since 1984. She has worked as an art teacher as well as a self-employed clay artist wholesaling to galleries through the US and internationally. We hope that this will be an interactive program, so please post your questions in the comments section and we will share them with the speakers towards the end of the program. Welcome, Lelania, Ginny, and Jane. It's so good to have the three of you here tonight, and I'm excited to learn more about your work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, my first question is to Ginny. First of all, are you from Connecticut? And second of all, when did you begin making your ceramic ornaments, houses, and teapots?
So to answer your question, I am a native of New Jersey. I grew up 20 miles from New York City. My father worked in the city in New York City in the Chrysler Building, and one of my teapots is the Chrysler Building, which is sort of an ode to him. The first house that I did was my house, which was on Ashley Street, which I had bought in 1979. It was a Victorian, 14-room Victorian, which I completely remodeled with my own hand, and it was the house itself. And I did the clay model as well. The actual house was covered with asphalt shingles. That was the siding that was maybe 40, 50 years old. And I was very curious as to what was underneath it. I removed the asphalt shingles on the actual house. And as I built the clay house, I kind of guessed what would have been underneath that. The clay house came first in terms of the model. And then I redid the outside of it's 1898 Victorian house.
So did it look similar to these one-of-a-kind houses that you've created?
Yes, it did. And it is on my website, which is virginiaseeley.com.
Sure. And could you tell us a little bit more about these two pieces?
I'll be glad to. The piece that is on my left, which is red and green primarily, is 12 Charter Oak Place, when I was living on Ashley Street, I was very taken by what was happening on Charter Oak Place. All of the houses, there are 12 houses that are built in the 1800s, and they were all slated for demolition by the city. And in the early 80s, they were salvaged, and somebody, there were a group of developers who started developing them. This house is the last house on the street. It's 12 Charter Oak Place, and I was so taken by it that was my second model that I did. It's very ornate. It's a beautiful, beautiful house. And our senator actually lives behind it at this point. This house, I did not finish it. I hadn't painted it. I hadn't colored it. And I was ready to throw it away because it just became an albatross for me. And my mother picked it up, and eventually it ended up in Florida, where my sister lives. And I ended up moving to Charter Oak Place, and I told my sister to mail it back to me, and she did, and I finished it. And so it's now in my living room. The other building is the Capewell, which will answer your other question here, which I think that you're going to be asking me. And that is, the Capewell was abandoned for 30 years, and it's a block from where I live right now. It was the Horseshoe Nail Company that left 30 years ago and went to Bloomfield. And it was ready to be torn down. That had multiple fires in it, and it was an imminent collapse. And CIL, Corporation for Independent Living, and a group of investors got together and they saved it a couple of years ago. But before that, it just felt so sad that I decided to give it some energy, and I made it into a teapot out of clay. It's about, I guess, 11 inches long and maybe 6 or 7 inches high. And it's in my living room as well, right behind me. And within 6 months, there were investors, and the process of rehabilitating the Capewell went forward. And now it is, I think, 70 apartment buildings.
That's great, because we got a question in the comments from Robert asking what the size of the pieces are, and are they generally all the same size dimensions, or
no, not necessarily. The first one that I did is really very large, and that was the one that I did of my house in 1979, and that is probably 18 to 20 inches tall. It is very large. I just completed one today, which has taken me many, many, many hours. That is for a customer in Fairfield. That's a one of a kind, and it's part of a Christmas village for his child to go under the Christmas tree. So that is quite small. It's an enormous, enormous multi-million-dollar house, and it's probably 12 inches, 11 to 12 inches wide, and probably about 5 or 6 inches high.
Great. So my next question is for Jane. Again, I'm going to ask you where you're from. You're from Connecticut. And if you could share with me, you're a pastel artist mostly, but I know you paint as well. If you could tell me about a Hartford piece that you've done that you feel best captures your experiences or feelings for the city.
Sure. Yes, I am a Connecticut native. I've lived here all my life except for 4 years of college in Massachusetts. And I do work frequently in and around Greater Hartford and around Central Connecticut. My primary medium is pastel, but I consider that to be painting. A lot of people think of the pastel medium as a drawing medium, but really it's kind of a hybrid between drawing and painting, because although you apply pastel with your hand as if you were drawing, the finished result is a painting. And I can get more into that a little bit later in talking about the medium. But I do a lot of plein air painting. I also paint in my studio regularly. So I go back and forth between those two things. One of the images that you have is of Cedar Hill Cemetery in Hartford. That's just a beautiful spot in Hartford. It's so historic and just so lovely. It's just a beautiful place to walk through or to meditate or even to go and paint. And I was just so moved by the light in this instance with these backlit Japanese maples there that are so pretty. I was also commissioned a few years ago to do a pair of pieces for a conference room at Prudential's downtown office. And I thought long and hard about what I would do for those two pieces because I wanted them to be really representative of Hartford and of the beauty of the city. And so in the end, I chose the parks. One of the pieces is of Bushnell Park with the pond and the Capitol building in the background. And the other one is Elizabeth Park looking into the Rose Garden. So Hartford is just really fortunate to have so much beautiful parkland, which is it's open space and it's something that's available to everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you. And that image of Cedar Hill is just beautiful. I love the Japanese maples as well. And also, finally, Lelania, welcome, Lelania. I know you're coming from another engagement, so we're so happy to have you. Lelania, where are you from? Are you from? And the second question to you is, how did you become involved in Hartford Flavor Company? I understand that you were one of the founders.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me. So I grew up in Milford. I was not born in the state, but I grew up here. And now I live, of course, right in Hartford in the West End. So I came to Hartford Flavor Company because I couldn't drink alcohol anymore. And after about 8 months of not drinking, I decided that life is better with a cocktail. And so I had been making the cranberry liqueur for Christmas gifts, and I decided that the recipe was really clean and easy to make. And so I made the lavender liqueur out of my garden. And then a few weeks later, on actually December 19th, 2013, so we're at the 7-year anniversary, I brought the two flavors to a holiday party right around the corner from my house. And there happened to be industry people there, so mixologists and restaurant owners. And they tried the two flavors and said, oh my God, you've got magic in a bottle, get this out to market. So I was a little reluctant, but my husband was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I was still like, no. And then a couple of weeks later, it was my birthday, and I went out to Peppercorns, and I had a prickly pear martini, and I had one sip of that martini, and I immediately felt ill, and it kind of ruined my birthday. And so that was the moment where I said, if I don't do this, I'm never going to be able to have a clean cocktail out again. And so that was my impetus. The next morning, I woke up and I went into the kitchen and I made 50 flavors and came down to 16 that were not only market viable, but really delicious and really great flavors. And so I made a test panel of about 300 people, friends, strangers, and industry people. And I was waiting for somebody to tell me, don't do it, they suck. I was going to kiss them. But everyone said, go ahead and do this, please. And so about April of 14, I said, okay, I can come up with no more excuses. And my husband and myself, we went forward and we invented Hartford Flavor Company. So Wild Moon is now in 9 states. We have really grown a brand. We have a spin-off line called Wild Moon Botanics. And this spring, I'll be launching a line of flavored vodkas. So it's been an amazing, wild, crazy ride.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about your creative process and how things have worked out since 2014. My next question is for Ginny. I know you've recreated a lot of well-known and well-loved Hartford buildings. What experiences or insights inspired you to start this journey? And I know you talked a little bit about some specific buildings, but if you could elaborate on that.
I think that when I moved to Hartford, when I moved to the Hartford area, I came up here for a teaching job, and I absolutely loved Hartford. I was comfortable in the city or in the country, having come from the New York metropolitan area. And I absolutely adored the buildings in Hartford. The boat building and the Stegosaurus were two that come to mind. And so I started doing, I did my house, and I did several other houses as commissions who were neighbors and friends. And then I was doing a backsplash for my stove, and I decided to do tiles, and the subject matter popped in my head was Hartford 2000. And so I did it in the 1990s, and it's drawings of a variety of Hartford buildings. It was the Hartford landscape in 2000 or 1999, and I think that's probably what led to it. When I moved to downtown, I was living in Asylum Hill, and when I moved to downtown, where I am now, these buildings are all around me. And so I kind of took the line drawings and I made them into three-dimensional drawings. The first one I did was the arch, the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Arch. It took me 3 weeks to do this. And I just did the front part of it. I didn't do the back of it. So I just did the front part of it. It's pretty much a sculpture. It's pretty much hand carved from a solid mass of clay. And I took a cast of that so I could reproduce it by pouring liquid clay into it. But when I took the cast of it, this is a little off subject of what you asked me. When I took the cast of it, the whole piece floated into the middle of the plaster. So I had to start all over again. It was 3 weeks of work. But that was what started the process. And then I just kept looking around for whatever thrilled me. And the boat building has been done as a teapot. The Stegosaurus has not, for a number of reasons. This structure itself is one reason. And I looked around, and I'm a little bit at a loss now. This year I did the Goodwin building. I try to do at least one more a year that I love. And I realized I had never done the Goodwin building, which was quite challenging. And I made that. I mostly make them into teapots. I'm not sure why, but that's what I do. And so the last one I've done is the Goodwin building, and I'm now challenged as to what to do next. I like to do something that's endangered. The Talcott, as many of you know, the Talcott Street Bridge is proposed to be demolished. So that is near and dear to my heart.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing all your upcoming works. I just think your work is phenomenal. And of course, I have to put up, you do Christmas ornaments or holiday ornaments as well. Anyone can hang these anywhere that they'd like. And here's one of our building, the Old State House. I just think that they're so awesome. And you, of course, do the Mark Twain House and things like that.
Thank you.
Of course, yeah. So my next question is for Jane. As an artist, when you create a piece that's done of somewhere in Connecticut, do you ever have an underlying message in mind, or hoping to help people see or think about Connecticut in a different way?
Well, it's really interesting that Ginny brought up the subject of things that are endangered, because I'm often attracted to things that are endangered too. And particularly as a landscape painter, I worry that the open space is disappearing all the time, more and more of it. And once it's gone forever. So I often find myself attracted to open space, farmland, old barns, things that are likely to disappear soon from the landscape. But I do, I paint a lot of different subject matter, and I'm mostly inspired by the emotional content of of the scene or the person or the whatever it is, the subject that I've chosen, I look for things like trying to capture the light, trying to capture the emotion of the experience. That's what really moves me. So whether it's a natural landscape or a person in an emotional situation, or even still life, or for example, that the scene that you saw earlier from Cedar Hill, those are all, to me, pieces that have emotional content to them.
And we are getting a couple of questions in. I'm going to continue on the conversation we're having now, but at some point I'm going to fold those questions in as well. Emily Bernst says one of her favorite ornaments is the Phoenix building. And Rebecca also asked if there was a building you plan to create soon, Ginny, and it looks like you mentioned the Goodwin Hotel as well as the Talcott Bridge.
I think the Talcott, I've just done the Goodwin building. That's my for 2020. I think the Talcott Street Bridge is calling to me at this point. I do have, I've done a number of years ago, I did the G. Fox building, and the spout is the Talcott Street Bridge, because I had noted at that point there are pieces of metal that are falling off the Talcott Street Bridge. Yeah, I'm on the Historic Properties Commission in Hartford, so I really can't say more about that right now, but I can say that I think I'll do the Talcott Street Bridge will be my 2021 teapot.
Awesome.
Which will be interesting because it doesn't lend itself to a teapot, but we'll see how that works out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking of the Stegosaurus as well. And maybe one day you'll try to take that on in some way, shape, or form. But that's great. So my next question is for Lelania. And I was wondering if there were any connections between your products or your, your logo design or anything like that that connect to the city of Hartford.
So absolutely. So I actually have the logo, behind me. And so Hartford means deer crossing in Old English. And so I wanted to have a logo for the company that represented that. So to me, it was very important to have a deer in the logo. But then, so I thought about deer logos. I didn't want to get sued by John Deere or Hartford. There's a lot of deer logos. And so I remembered from my mythology, the goddess Diana, her constant companion was a deer. And so I thought, perfect, ballsy chick, goddess of the hunt. I was hunting after something, and so it just meshed. She is also the goddess of the moon and goddess of the wild, of all nature. And so for the last 25 years, I've been a landscape designer. And so I'm taking the plants and flowers that I love so much and preserving them in alcohol so that we can have a clean cocktail. So the brand Wild Moon is goddess of the wild, goddess of the moon. So that's how it all ties together.
Great. And could you tell us a little bit more about some of your products, particularly I guess you could say sort of like the original liqueurs. And then I know you mentioned as well the botanical line that's coming out.
Sure. So in our original line, we have 7 flavors: cucumber, rose, which is my personal favorite, lime, lavender, cranberry, birch, and chai spice. They're all fantastic. Several of them have won awards. They're very flavor forward, concentrated, reduced organic sugar. So my goal is to try to change the liqueur category and make it something that is new and fresh and certainly, of course, clean with no chemicals, artificial flavors, or colors. So I am trying to revolutionize the category and how we drink. We think about clean food, but we don't think enough about clean rooms. And I, for one, am not going to stop drinking, even though I eat very clean. It is my one kind of fun thing that I get to do. And so it matters to me so much that it is clean. So the new Wild Moon Botanics flavors, there's 4 right now. I plan to have a few more launching. And these are the most unusual flavors of about 500 tests that I've done now with different plant infusions. The sumac is a native Connecticut plant that grows everywhere. It's pungent and bright and has fantastic flavor to it. It is kind of a citrus, floral, herbal tone that's something you've never tried before. The 7-lemon flavor is, I'm not really a fan of limoncello, and many people had asked me for a lemon. So this is my version of a lemon. It is lemongrass forward, lemon balm, lemon verbena, and lemon juice, lemon peel, Meyer lemon juice, and Meyer lemon peel. The next one is sage, and I grow the sage all across Hartford in, of course, my community garden, as well as some friends' houses and my garden. And so it's a huge harvest at the end of August or into September. And so all of that sage is Hartford grown. And then roasted dandelion root, the last flavor in the 4, really unusual, unexpected chicory, caramel tones, and then kind of finishes with a coffee chocolate flavor. I call her the dark horse of the family.
That's awesome. Those look good. I love lemon flavored things. I feel like I would definitely really like that. With all the different lemon, like the zest, the peel, the juice, the lemongrass, that sounds delicious. My next question is for Ginny. What kind of responses does your work evoke in people? Do they share memories, talk about other favorite buildings, ask for more information about buildings?
I think that the one building that most people respond to, particularly people who have grown up in Connecticut or in Hartford area, is the G. Fox building. I've done the G. Fox teapot, and I've also done a G. Fox plaque. The G. Fox teapot, I have Christmas trees across the marquee, which was what happened in the 50s and 60s. There was a company that would decorate the marquee in plywood houses and also in Christmas trees. The plaque that I've done is actually from a photograph from the early 60s, I believe, that has historic buildings in Connecticut on the marquee that had been built out of plywood. And interesting, I went to breakfast one morning and our waitress introduced me just by chance to the man who ran that company, who built that marquee. What's his name? Oldham. And so we had a nice little chat, and I believe it was probably the late 50s, but he definitely said it was in the 60s. And the buildings that he created, there was a historic building in Old Weathersfield, and there's a historic building in that still survives, and there's a historic building in Farmington, and the Goodspeed Opera House was on it, and there was a church that I believe was from Litchfield. That was a congregational church that was on it. And so I reproduced those, and they're probably maybe 3/4 of an inch large. And that goes across this plaque that I've done. And people, you know, everybody has great stories about their experience in G. Fox, going there at Christmas time, going there with their mothers, going there at different times of the year.
Absolutely. And I know our director, Sally Whipple, she worked at G. Fox when she was, I believe, in high school. So I know that building has a big place in her heart. And just a follow-up question, mostly because I'm curious. I know that you've done one-of-a-kind houses. It sounds like you have done pieces of buildings from different cities. Is there another city that you would ever like pursue, like what you did in Hartford, with another city that has so many iconic buildings?
Well, New York City, because of the fact that I grew up 20 miles from New York City, I actually worked in the city during my college summers. My father worked in the Chrysler Building. That was an early teapot I did of the Chrysler Building. It's just the top part of the Chrysler Building. But since then, New York, iconic New York that I knew then has been a big draw for me. We spent all of our holidays and our Christmases and Easter and in the city. We'd pick up my father and we'd go out to dinner, and then we'd go to usually Radio City Music Hall and see the performances, the Christmas performance and the Rockettes and all that. That was a family tradition. And so I have done a number of ornaments. I've done King Kong on top of the, both as an ornament and a teapot on top of the Empire State Building. I've done a number of those. Rockefeller Center Christmas Time is a new ornament that I've done this year. A lot of Christmas based ornaments from New York City. So that calls to me. And then beyond that, I love Paris. Been to Paris once, but I absolutely love Paris and I love the buildings there. So that may be something in the future. I'm not sure.
Great. Thank you. My next question is for Jane. As an artist, and I know you talked a little bit about, different inspirations, but what do you find inspiring about Connecticut in depicting Connecticut?
Connecticut is a beautiful state. And, one of the really lucky things about living in New England is that we have all seasons in New England. We have clear winter, spring, summer, and fall. And so every season is different. Every day is different in terms of the weather. And the way that it interacts with the landscape is really, I love the state parks, and especially now, during the pandemic when we're all stuck at home and looking for places to go. The state parks, the rail trails, things like that are just sources of endless material for me. I really love that. But also, in addition to making art, I've always been a consumer of the arts as well and a supporter of the arts. And I think that it's important to say that Hartford in particular is a really arts-rich city, and we're so fortunate to have that. The arts organizations have really reached out to their communities during this situation, and in order to stay viable. And I think that's really important and inspiring about our local city.
Totally. We had a question from Rebecca come in who was asking sort of how the pandemic impacted your work. And I'm sure it's been I know it's been incredibly hard for all artists. I know at some point we'll talk a little bit about Lelania's, I know Hartford Flavor Company did some hand sanitizer, created some hand sanitizer, I believe. So looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that. And we do have another question from Linda Yanani. She just mentions natural features, ponds, lakes, hills. Jane, do you have a favorite pond or lake or area that you love?
Yes, absolutely. I live in Eastern Connecticut, which is still very rural. And there are a lot of beautiful ponds and lakes around here. Bolton Lake. There's a wonderful state park in Bolton Notch that nobody knows about that has rail trails. It's just gorgeous. And beaver dams and ponds and so forth there. Coventry Lake is also lovely. And to answer the question about the pandemic, earlier we were talking about painting things that are that we're going to miss if they're gone. And during the pandemic, I have really felt moved to paint people. And I know it's because I miss my people. I miss my children. I miss my grandchildren, my friends. And so some of my more recent work is figurative work. The one on the right is my husband, the masked man. Who is the masked man? It's my husband. And the one on the left is a parent and child, a family that are very dear friends of ours that live out of state, and we weren't able to see them this year. So I've turned toward painting people this year.
That's interesting. Well, they're beautiful. I love them both.
Thank you.
Lelania, my next question is for you. I'd love to learn more about your actual physical space. I know you have a tasting room, an office space as well. So where are you located in Hartford, and what is the history of the building?
So we are located at 30 Arbor Street in the Parkfield section, and it used to be a Gray Industries building. They created the first pay telephones there. So I am in the back of the building. We have a little annex space that was actually a New York Times distribution hub for a while. And so it's really great to be in a space where we have old wood floors and these big crazy doors in the middle of the space. And it's just a small distillery space. We do have a small tasting room as well. And it's really fun to visit. We are open for tours now. Because of the pandemic, it's a little bit different, so you need a reservation. You can get those at hartfordflavor.com. We're open Friday 4 to 7 and Saturday 1 to 6. And then Monday through Saturday 12 to 5 for purchasing. The little store is open. So we make everything right there. We have the little tasting room, and we have a big kitchen space, and of course our offices. It is tiny, but it is efficient, and we make a lot of booze in a very small space.
That's great. And can you talk a little bit, answering Rebecca's question in the comments here about how the pandemic has impacted your work?
Sure. It was most extraordinary. So in March, the middle of March, we saw the pandemic coming, and we closed down when the restaurants closed. That Monday, March 16th, I laid off all my staff, and it was a really hard day for me because part of what we do in Hartford is create jobs, particularly safe jobs for women. And it was really tough. I had to let everybody go. And I had an idea that we might make hand sanitizer, but with my license, that was against the law at the moment. And so I had heard of another distillery that had lobbied TTB, the federal government agency that regulates distilleries, and they just lobbied them and said, can we please do this? And so I made up the formula that Tuesday, and I was just about to sit down and write the letter, and I got an email back from TTB saying that they were giving small distilleries free license to go ahead and make hand sanitizer because of the shortages, and if we had the resources and wherewithal, could we please do that to help our communities? So I had to go ahead, and I had the formula, and we quickly made a label, and we got everything ready, and we immediately put it on sale on the Thursday. We got into a news article, I believe it was NBC, that put a commercial out for us on the evening news, and that was Friday night. The phone started ringing right off the hook. Right after that 11 o'clock news story, and it was ringing and ringing, and at midnight we got an email from FDA saying, oh, TTB kind of messed up, and you need to have all these things in your label before you can launch. And so we worked like bunnies that night, and were able to open at 10 a.m. for sales. We had lines around the corner for about 2 months. So we were supplying all 4 counties. So all of the counties except for Litchfield and Fairfield, there were 2 distilleries making booze in those counties. We were supplying all of the rest of the state with hand sanitizer for that period of time. And it was breathtaking, the line and the need, the desperation in people's eyes, and just the franticness of it. And so that next week I was able to hire everybody back, which was fantastic, and more. I hired a bunch of out of work bar people, which was very helpful for them. And I went around and I had this kind of donation crusade where I gave about $50,000 worth of product to 35 hospitals. I drove all around the state handing it out, and it was a really extraordinary time because not very many people were on the road during those few weeks. And every time I went into a hospital, the look on the people's faces that were the greeters when they saw that I was actually bringing them something that they desperately needed, and the look of relief on their face that I wasn't the next victim, but I was actually somebody that was there to help them, or was not a sick person. Extraordinary. Those moments will stay with me for the rest of my life. It's been quite a really incredible journey. And so I'm changed as a person, and my business has changed as well. Hand sanitizer is now 25% of our business, which it's fantastic. It saved us.
Wow, that's a phenomenal story. That was always such a surprising thing, like the intersections that were created because of COVID back in March. Well, thank you for everything that Hartford Flavor Company did to keep people safe. I know hand sanitizer is still very important. We do have a question, Lelania, for you in the comments. Emily is wondering, one, if curbside service is available, and two, if the cranberry liqueur is available.
Yes, we can do curbside service, although we do clean thoroughly after each person in the store. We're very thorough about that. I want to keep my people safe. And so that is possible if you want. And yes, we always have the cranberry liqueur. We do call it a seasonal, but we make tons and tons of batches, enough to satisfy the year's need. It is our most popular flavor in the fall. So no problem there. We definitely have it.
Great. I'm sure she'll be happy about that. So my next question is for Ginny. I'm actually going to pull one from the comments here from Robert. He's wondering if you've ever considered, or maybe you have done, buildings on the Yale campus, like Yale Repertory, Harkness Tower, Battle Chapel, Sterling Library. These are some, I guess, I'm not super familiar with the Yale campus, but these must be some buildings on Yale's campus.
I'm not familiar with Yale's campus either. And so, no, I haven't, but it sounds like it might be a good trip to drive down there and see what's going on down there. I did do an ornament of the Goodspeed Opera House, and I considered branching out from Hartford and wondering about Connecticut, but I honestly have not had time to do that at this point, but I will investigate that.
Sounds good. Now we've talked about the teapots and the one of a kind houses. Ornaments are a little more flexible. I know you have the Stegosaurus ornament, for example. What's your favorite? I know this is a hard question, but what is your favorite site to create ornaments out of in Hartford?
What is my favorite child? Is that what you're asking?
You don't have to answer it. It's okay.
I love the arch.
Yeah.
I love the arch. I don't know what it is about the arch, but to me that's special. That's iconic Hartford. And the other one I haven't mentioned is the Colt building. I absolutely love the Colt building.
The Onion Dome. It's funny because Emily just left a comment. She was mentioning the parish house, the Colt parish house.
Yeah, I'm on the board of Coltsville Heritage Partnership, which is the Friends group that is ushering in the national park. And I have agreed to do a coloring book for visitors who come to the park, which isn't going to happen for another 5 years, and so I have done the parish house in that coloring book as a line drawing. That would be quite challenging. And that is something I should consider for another teapot or another building. It would be very challenging because a lot of detail in there. Beautiful, beautiful building. And if you have ever been up to the second floor ballroom, I guess it's called the ballroom, it is absolutely spectacular.
It is. Yeah, it's amazing. Last fall, I went up to a tour and it was great. And the church is really beautiful too. You haven't done an ornament of the church itself, have you?
Not of that church, no. I was asked to do ornaments of Center Church, which I may not get this right, which was actually established in the 1630s, I believe. If you consider the Pilgrims came over in the 1620s, that is a very, very old church for the United States. And yes, I did an ornament of Center Church, but I have sort of stayed away from churches. That being part of the more of a historic flavor, that being part of the national park. that I probably should be doing that too.
Yeah, and Rebecca, our director of public programs, made a good point. You didn't say the Old State House was your favorite. It's okay. We'll forgive you.
Oh, I have an Old State House teapot and an Old State House ornament, and yes, it's up there.
Well, we appreciate that. My next question is for Jane. How did you become interested in pastel work? You are well known for your work in pastels. How did you come to find that this medium suits the ideas and images you want to express?
That's a really interesting question. I started out with drawing, which I think most artists do, because drawing is kind of the foundation for everything else. And that led me into printmaking when I was in college, which I really loved doing. But printmaking takes a lot of equipment that was available to me in the college studio, but not something that most artists have in their own homes. So from there, I sort of gravitated into painting, continued with the drawing, and I just found that pastel is a really interesting hybrid between drawing and painting. A lot of people think that pastel is made of chalk, but it's not. It's actually made of the same pigments that are used in oil paints, except that they're suspended in a solid medium rather than in an oil, making them liquid. So the result is the same, not exactly the same, but it's similar to oil painting. I consider my work to be paintings because I cover the paper just as I would if I were working with paint on a canvas. And I just love the expressiveness of pastel. You can get so many different effects with it, of transparency, of light, of just the light and shadow, the brilliance of color. I just love everything about the pastel medium, and it's just the way I choose to express myself in visual art.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Lelania, we've talked about your the liqueurs and the botanical liqueurs. Obviously, these are a part of a cocktail. So what are cocktails that you have created at Hartford Flavor Company? What's your favorite? What are your customers' favorites?
Oh my goodness, we could be here for hours talking about that. So what I do, to me, what Hartford Flavor does best is Wild Moon Liqueurs is an easy to make cocktails at home brand. So I've designed it so that it's almost like granimals for alcohol. So you take your favorite liqueur flavor of Wild Moon, you take your favorite base flavor of vodka or gin or bourbon, and then you take a mixer of your choice, and you're going to have a cocktail that you like. It's that easy to make great cocktails at home with Wild Moon. So playing with it and being able to make different things, low ABV or light cocktails are very much on trend right now and coming. So you don't need the base spirit, the extra alcohol. If you take a liqueur and pick any of my flavors and then just add a soda or a juice or sparkling water, like I do a lot with the cucumber. So it's cucumber, the sparkling water, and fresh lime. It's a really light, refreshing cocktail for the summer. And then in the fall, I really love the rose liqueur with a little bit of orange and a little bit of maybe a San Pellegrino limonada or something like that. Light, easy cocktails. And then, of course, if you want to have an extra little bit of alcohol in there, throw in some vodka or some gin and get to be a little more racy. So it's so much you can do with the brand. And that's one of the things that I like best about it, is that it's really interesting. And it also makes it so that you can get into different kinds of cocktails. So I'm not a mixologist. I have not spent one day behind a bar, but I'm a real home enthusiast. And I want to be able to help other people be home enthusiasts as well. So say take our birch flavor with bourbon. That's a very popular drink and probably maybe our most popular. I get people that, back when we were able to do this, when I was tasting at an event, I would have people come up to me and be like, virgin bourbon. So that was really fun. But it makes easy drinks like that. So our virgin bourbon replaces the traditional old fashioned. So a little twist of orange, and you've got all of those flavors without the muddling work. And so this makes easy drinks at home. That's what I'm definitely after. The chai spice is fantastic with like the aged rums or aged spirits in general, and then maybe a little ginger ale, fresh lime, and you've got an easy cocktail. I drink them straight, of course, and then I also like them in food. So this time of year, I love to put the flavors into a boozy whipped cream with a little bit of confectioner sugar, and you've got a fantastic alternative, something that you've made at home, and fantastic like on hot chocolate. I cook with them and bake with them. It goes into my cookies all the time. I'm actually working on a food cookbook for them. So there's just so much you can do. The options are endless, and I'm constantly making something new every day. And so to say my favorite cocktail, that would be really hard because it's usually the one I'm going to make right now. So it's really fun to play with.
I get that. Yeah. I mean, I'm really, I haven't tried any, I will say, admittedly, I haven't tried any of your liqueurs yet, but now I definitely am going to, because as everyone's drinking at home these days, it's really easy to just make like a, I don't know, vodka soda or a gin and tonic, but it seems very like you can just add one of these liqueurs and it really elevates the flavor, which is really interesting.
Exactly. It's so easy to elevate a G&T. I'm a gin girl, and so gin and tonic and a splash of my rose, bam, you've got this fantastic elevated cocktail, a little garnish or not, and all of a sudden you've got something really special for the evening, and it helps you just feel like you're a civilized person. Here we are all sitting at home staring at the walls, and it just makes you feel like you're not alone and you're doing something special for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're running out of time here, but I have to ask you this question because I think it's such a good question. And I don't know if I'm asking exactly like if mixology is an art or a science, or if what you do is an art or a science, but how do you feel? Is this an art, what you do, or is it a science?
So I'm an artist first, and I went to art school. I'm a painter. I've been painting for years. I've got one of my paintings in the back there, if you can see that little painting. And so to me, it is art, but I grew up in a science family. So my grandfather was an inventor. My dad was always science. I grew up reading Scientific American as a kid. And so it is art meets science. Like any good food or any good drink, it is the flavors, it is the tastes, which is the art. And then there's the chemical science part, which is combining those flavors. So for example, if you have a cocktail and you have a liqueur and a base spirit and a mixer, that is a basic formula for a cocktail. And if you add lemon juice, which is a flavor enhancer, you've now got to shake that cocktail because the lemon juice won't combine with the other flavors without shaking. It'll just sit independently, and you'll get bursts of odd lemon flavor. So there's science there. So you're taking that art of a flavor and you're combining it in a cocktail with the science of shaking it, and bam, you've got art and science married, and that's the best.
That's awesome. Making me thirsty, Lelania. No.
Let's have cocktails after.
Thank you so much for that really great description. So we are sort of towards the end of the program, so I'm going to switch gears just for a minute to talk about our upcoming program. We're talking about drinks, and this program focuses on food. It's next Tuesday. It is, I believe, Eric Lehman, and this isn't good, but I forget the name of the other woman. But the two of them are going to be sitting down with Mariana Garcia, one of our museum educators, next Tuesday at noon on Facebook Live. And it's all about the history of Connecticut food, our delicious origins. And now I'm going to put up a slide which has all of the information for all three of our wonderful artists, Virginia, Jane, and Lelania's Hartford Flavor Company. So we'll just go down the list. Ginny, if someone after watching this program, they're like, oh my God, I got to get an ornament. Christmas is in 8 days. Where would their best bet be at this point?
I'm selling my work during COVID. I'm selling my work at Wesleyan Potters. They have all of my ornaments. I don't know what status it is but you certainly can call them. They are in Middletown. This is the 65th year that they are celebrating an annual show. We are actually in a gallery at this point in the building. We aren't doing a large full-scale show, but I am selling my work at Wesleyan Potters. You can call them and see the availability. I only have a few teapots down there, and if there's something else that you want, I have a full inventory in my studio, and you can contact me through my website.
Phenomenal. Thank you. And Jane, you have your website, www.janepenfield.com. Should people just go right to your website?
Probably the most direct way to do it. I have several pieces out at various shows right now too, so there are pieces available through the shows and galleries where they're being shown, but all of my work is on my website, and if you don't see something that you're looking for, just send me an email.
Great.
Through
Awesome.
my website.
Thank you so much. And finally,
Thank
Lelania, your tap room, or sort of, I guess it would be like tasting room, not tap room because that's beer, is open. You mentioned Monday through Saturday, 12 to 5 for pickup, and people can still do tastings as well on Fridays and Saturdays, if I'm correct. And you have more information at Hartford Flavor Company, or sorry, hartfordflavor.com.
Correct. Hartfordflavor.com is where you can go to get either something shipped to a friend or family member. Of course, we have our cute little store with merchandise and stuff, so you can come in and shop at 30 Arbor Street in the back of the building, and then visit our tasting room Friday 4 to 7, Saturday 1 to 6, and that is available by reservation only. So hartfordflavor.com is where you can get your reservation.
Great. And just a quick question out of curiosity, in your tasting room, are there cocktails offered, or is it just tastings of the liqueurs?
So the tour that we do, we can't actually walk people around anymore. So it's a taste of the flavors, and it's broken into 2 categories. We have the original lineup of 7 flavors, or you can do the Wild Moon Botanics 4 flavors and our barrel-aged line, which is very exciting, in building only sales of that. And so you can taste either or, and then you can have a cocktail sample of your choice to taste afterwards. So we're not a bar. You can't come in and just drink. I wish one day we will. We're going to be building a big, fancy new distillery opening in the spring of 22. So look for that in Parkville.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to all 3 of you. It's been so great to learn more about your creative processes, and I'm glad that we were able to let folks know where they can purchase your work as well. Before we sign off, anything else anyone wants to add?
I'm so honored to be included in this great show. Thank you so much for supporting Hartford as much as you do. And I'm honored to be with Virginia and Jane, true artists, and it's so fantastic to see. Hi, everybody.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Allison, for the opportunity.
Oh, more than happy to do it. Well, thank you so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and we will see you hopefully next Tuesday at noon for our Food in Connecticut program. So good night, everybody. Thank you, and have a great rest of your night.